Bom dia a todos. Welcome to our webinar on Chinese e-commerce. My name is Augusto Castro. I'm the head of the China unit of Apex Brazil. And to talk about the cross-border e-commerce in China, we have a very special guest here with us today, Ben Gaomi. Ben Gaomi is the Vice President for Overseas Markets at Jumor, which is an e-commerce platform and network in China. Ben, welcome to Brazil. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a great pleasure.
Well, let's begin with the size of the cross-border segment in China. The overall e-commerce in China last year was around 682 billion US dollars, and the cross-border segment has reached 60 billion US dollars last year. So it's roughly a bit less than 10% of the overall market. Some people say it will reach 150 billion US dollars in 2020, within 3 years, and will become more or less 15% of the overall market. But very recently, the Chinese government has introduced new regulation on new rules on taxations and requirements for cross-border sales in China. So Ben, how do you see these new trends? Do you think cross-border sales are likely to become more similar to a normal foreign trade transaction? Do you think the regulation will be an obstacle to sell from overseas to Chinese consumers or not?
I don't see these regulations as a restriction. I think they are meant to stay. They are a way for the regulators to bring some order. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a very healthy way, and it's a very healthy development. Longer term, medium to longer term, these trends are all part of a bigger picture, which is the rise of the middle class in China. This is the big trend. So these trends that you're describing in cross-border sales, the need for the regulator to watch, to impose new rules, new regulations, they are part of a bigger picture, which is the rise of the middle class in China. The middle class in China is one of the middle classes which is going to rise the most on the planet, and this is a big trend to observe very, very carefully.
Yeah, can you comment on this new these drivers for growth in the Chinese e-commerce, especially from lower tier 3 cities in China, smaller cities? Can you comment on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most fascinating developments which is taking place. There are many drivers that are taking place in China, but since China is about to become the largest economy in the world, it's already the largest economy in the world by size, but by GDP per capita, it's still number 2, but it's on its way to become the largest economy in the world, definitely. It's affecting the rest of the world. It's affecting the rest of the world in positive ways. And for exporters out of Brazil, they need to be aware of these big trends that are taking place. So the middle class itself is the main driver. We are currently at 300 million of Chinese households, middle class,
yeah.
And this is going to reach 800 million, more than 70% by the middle of the next decade. By 2025, you're going to have easily more than 70% of the population which is going to be considered middle class. Out of these trends, you are seeing a major catch-up effect taking place in those less developed areas, less developed provinces. We have to realize that China is 1.3 billion people, and 1.3 billion people, that's 4 times Europe. And within that economy, you have very diverse cities, diverse provinces. Some are more advanced than others. We are all aware of Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen. These are very advanced, but behind these provinces and cities, you have provinces and cities which need to catch up. And that's where growth is going to come from. The Chinese GDP as a whole is on its way of normalizing. It's been an export-driven economy so far, and recently you've seen that it's becoming more of a domestically driven economy. But within those domestic drivers, you're also seeing that some provinces and cities are going to grow at double digit and others at single digit.
Especially in the West.
And especially in the West. So that's where it's happening as well.
Well, Jumor is a small platform. Well, it's a big platform, but in the Chinese market, we know the Chinese market is dominated by giants such as Alibaba and JD. They have like 75-80% of the market share of the e-commerce market share in China. How do you guys differentiate yourselves in such a market dominated by these giants? What kind of services do you offer to your clients that make you survive in such a competitive environment?
Yes, we have a very strong history in trading of commodities, of bulk commodities, chemical products, and we are extending this range of expertise in agricultural products, in consumer products, and so we have the whole range from raw materials to finished products, raw materials, semi-finished raw materials, and we are building what we like to call an ecosystem for business.
Can you comment on that? How does it work, this E4B concept?
E4B is we are aware that on these new tools, new e-commerce platforms, you need to offer all the tools that are going to allow our users to perform on global markets. So we are building an ecosystem where anyone getting involved on the Jumor platform can find answers to their needs. They can find answers to their logistical needs, to their financial needs, to their expertise needs.
So it's a kind of whole package, like you offer all kinds of logistics, like marketing, all kinds of service providers you have within the platform.
Within the platform, everybody meets, we match the needs, we are matchmakers, and on the platform itself, users will be able to find the answers to their needs. We have different sub-platforms. We have the verticals, which are the products from the raw materials to the finished products, and then we have different horizontal sub-platforms which are more functional, from the financial platform, the expertise platform, the big data sub-platform, the certification sub-platform. We pay a lot of attention to certification and standardization. For us it's very important because our platform is built on trust. And you are asking what makes you different from the other big names out there. Well, again, it's a 1.3 billion economy, and we have a history which is rooted in these trading practices that we've been involved in for many years. So our expertise with state-owned enterprises in China is very large, is very big, is very deep, and is very much rooted in the relationships that we've established all along these years with these state-owned enterprises. So that's what users are going to find with us.
It's mainly a B2B platform.
Absolutely. It's a business-to-business platform. We are interested in large quantities. We are interested in connecting companies to the most serious partners. We know them. So if a company wants to find a partner in China, either for distribution or for manufacturing, we actually can match these companies depending on their needs to the partner who is going to be the most appropriate. So it's a platform which is digital, but because of the nature of the business-to-business type of business, it's very different from B2C. B2C, you go on Amazon.com, you buy your book, and it happens in less than 30 seconds, even less. I mean, it's like seamless. Not on B2B. It still requires an on and off kind of relationship. You still need to pick up the phone, and it's a case-by-case basis. It's very relationship based on relations. We work with the users, and we have conversations to understand the users, to build their brands, to understand their brand, to understand the channels that they will need to reach out to. So it's an on and off type of relationship.
Yeah, it's your first time in Brazil, like
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned like commodities, large quantities. What kind of company, what kind of product do you think Brazil has to offer in your platform? What kind of Brazilian company do you think are more likely to be successful at Jumor?
I think Brazil has the basis, the companies, the right kind of companies to go to the Chinese market, but not just to China, to the rest of the world.
You mentioned agricultural products, like
absolutely, agricultural products. I was very happy to establish some connections with the Association of Agricultural Products. We've had good conversations with various associations who have very specific products, from agricultural to industrial. I just met with a very interesting company which has a very specific product in the construction area, which has a huge potential, not just in China, but in Africa, in Europe. So we're very happy to be collaborating with Brazilian companies, because Brazil as a brand, as a country and as a brand, has a very strong recognition, and it's good to now spread the word and be working with Brazilian companies.
Yeah. How important do you think is like market intelligence and data, big data, analytics? Do you think in China, like to do the homework before you come to the market? Like,
yeah, very important. It's crucial.
And you provide this kind of service to your customers as well?
We will provide the type of information, and it's very crucial, because if you can't, for such a big economy, you cannot go to China by just assuming that if you go to Beijing, you're actually understanding the whole country. As I said before, you've got different tiers in cities, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. You've got different segments. You've got to understand those trends, and you've got to be paying attention to the statistics that are coming out of the various official statistical offices in China itself. They are very good in quality, but you also need to understand the various consumer trends. Again, we are B2B, so
it's very different from B2C.
It's very different from B2C in terms of behavior, but our connections to state-owned enterprises makes us very aware of the various large projects, infrastructure projects. We pay a lot of attention to infrastructure projects. The Belt and Road Initiative is a big one that we're paying a lot of attention to. I'm going to Morocco in the next few weeks to also observe what's happening there and establish connections. So yes, it's very important to pay attention to the business intelligence, to the statistical and data factors as well, absolutely. And then the basic advice that I always give is just go there and spend some time there, feel the country, feel the culture, feel the various cities and how the country itself is organized, and get some feeling about it.
Well, we know the Chinese market is very crowded, very competitive. Like, how can companies protect themselves from like predatory competition, aggressive undercutting? How do you see this? How can companies protect themselves against this?
again, it will depend a lot on the type of relationship that you've been able to establish. China is a lot about relationships as well, and by making sure that you're connecting to the right type of partners, to make sure that you've done your legal work, you can protect your brand through trademarks, which is pretty much a very complex process, but it's a clear process. But make sure that you've done your legal work, and make sure as well that you've chosen the right partner based on the right introductions, and making sure that you've taken enough information. It's a lot about, it requires a lot of patience, so we recommend to be patient and to sit and really take the time to really get to know the market through the right relationships. Absolutely.
Great. Before we finish, Ben, what kind of advice would you give to Brazilian companies that want to sell at you more? Like, what would be the first steps?
Yeah, the first step is to look at the numbers. To look at, do your homework in terms of looking at the numbers, looking at the statistics, making sure that you understand those big trends that I talked about, the main drivers between the most developed provinces and the less developed provinces, to have a good understanding of the geography of these cities and provinces. And then I like to always give the WeChat advice, which is that WeChat is very developed in China, and you got to be using WeChat as a channel.
More than 800 million users. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you got to be on WeChat. You got to be because you have everyone on it, but it's the most flexible, the most user-friendly tool that is being used by a larger and larger number of business executives. Decisions are being made on WeChat, and there are also solutions, financial as well as technical solutions that are being developed on this platform. So it's part of understanding.
Having like a feel of the market. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very, those social media tools are very important to understand in China. Absolutely.
Ben, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Obrigado. I'm very happy, very glad to be here in Brazil.